Hello and welcome to Peace, Love, and Robots, a podcast about anything and everything and all that is in between. I'm your host, Jeremy, and this is episode number 26 for March 3rd, 2021. Yeah, we made it to March! And as the old saying goes, it's coming in like a lion over here in my corner of the world. What's that mean? Well, last night, the wind was blowing so hard, that when I woke up this morning, there was a dead witch under the house and everything was in color. Yeah, I would love to take credit for that joke. I've been stealing it for years, but it actually comes from a TV show called Heartland. No, not the one you're thinking of. Not the Canadian melodrama, soap opera that my wife loves. It's not really a soap opera. It's more of a family drama. Really, there's not a lot of soap opera-ness to it. But anyway, it's not that show. It's actually a sitcom from 1989. It only aired for like maybe 8 episodes in the summer of '89, and it starred Brian Keith. And I thought it was hilarious. It was the first place where I even saw the acting talents of one Devin Rattray, who you might know better as Buzz McAllister from Home Alone. Yeah, he was a completely different character than Buzz. He played a lovable goofball, a lovable kind of doofus named Gus in that show, and it was hilarious. How do I remember this stuff? Well, I had a problem when I was a kid. I used to tape everything, including sitcoms that were short-lived in the summertime. I would tape them and watch them over and over again. And this was one of those shows I remember very clearly laughing a lot at. And it was only on for a short period of time, then it disappeared. Well, it might not have been as great. I mean, it only lasted a short period of time, but I was only 12, so it was great from when I was 12. I used to love that show. For all I know, my tastes have refined as I've gotten older, but who am I kidding? This is the same guy who still likes movies like One Crazy Summer and Better Off Dead that I also loved when I was 12. But you can't find Heartland on DVD or streaming anywhere because it was only one season. But it was hilarious. Trust me on that. I must be the only guy who remembers that show. I'm betting I'm one of a few people. There are dozens of us. Dozens! Anyway, this podcast, I ran through the song. I actually finished the song before I finished the song before I could get to this part, which I normally am talking over music at this point, because I got talking about Heartland from 1989. That's the kind of show this is. It's a podcast about anything and everything and all that's in between, which includes rarely remembered sitcoms that only I remember. That's the kind of stuff in my head that I just blurt out. And why I don't have many friends? Maybe not. That's probably not why I have many friends. I don't have many friends. I have plenty of friends, but that's I'm completely off the rails here. This podcast is brought to you by the ads you hear at the beginning and the end of the show. So if you listen all the way through, that's through to the end, to the moment that it rolls into whatever podcast you have coming up next on your playlist. If you listen through the end, I'll be forever in your debt. I'm almost to, I actually have passed the $20 mark. Yeah, I've lost more money than I've made at podcasting, but, you know, every penny counts. So if you listen all the way through, I will be forever in your debt. Well, I've got a fun show for you because for the first time ever, I have a guest. So rather than just dive down the wormhole of little remembered sitcoms, let's get to it. Now, I don't think it's any exaggeration when I say that 2020 was a difficult year for us all. Sure, we were stuck in our homes. Everybody was stuck in their homes. Binge watching Netflix or Disney Plus, whatever, came across our television until our eyes were crossed. And after just a few weeks, we pretty much ran out of things to argue with our immediate family about. And once again, the internet came to the rescue for myself and about 1,800 people now, at least, in the form of Bracket of Champions. Touting itself as the home of dumb arguments, debatable results, definitive answers, and infinite importance, this Facebook group has provided the perfect place to let off steam, all while having a little bit of fun. And with March Madness just around the corner, I thought it would be the perfect time to sit down with John Barber, the Chief BOC Bracketologist, to discuss the history of the group, winners, losers, dumb debates, and much, much more. Hey, John, thanks for coming.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think I've been a part of the group since the beginning, and I just got to know, how did this whole thing start? How did you start doing these brackets?
Yeah, it's a good question. You might not know this as a Bracket of Champions fan, but I actually love sports. Most of the stuff we do in Bracket of Champions is very like pop culture-y and kind of nerdy, but I do love sports, and that includes like March Madness, NCAA tournament, and all those things. And a few years ago, I think it was 2018, I got a little bit of inspiration from that, and I created my first bracket. It was not called Bracket of Champions back then. It was just on my Facebook, and I did a Disney Pixar movie bracket just for me and my friends. And we did it over, a few weeks, and I did it on my own little private blog and that sort of thing. And people had a lot of fun with it, and it was a good time. Beauty and the Beast won, in case you're wondering.
Wow, were there 64 in the bracket?
There were 64, yeah.
Wow, what was the runner-up?
Toy Story.
Wow, yeah. That's
It was a fun one. The final four, if I remember, it's been a minute, were Beauty and the Beast and the Lion King on one side, which is understandable, and Toy Story, and then Up made it all the way to the final four, which is kind of like a Cinderella, no pun intended, run for Up. Nobody saw it making that far, but yeah. So we did the Disney Pixar bracket, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. People had a good time with it. And then I was like, okay, that was good. And then it just kind of went away. And I never did anything with it again until the beginning, basically, the start of the pandemic.
Well, you had more time on your hands, right?
A little bit. And, everybody was really just down.
Right.
And understandably so. And you would scroll through social media, and it was all just, again, understandably so, but it was all just the bad stuff.
Right.
It was COVID, and it was politics, and it was world events, and all those things. And I'm not saying those things aren't important to talk about, because they are.
Of course.
Yeah, but it was just a bummer. And so I just thought, let's try it again. It's been a couple of years now. Let's bring it back. And so we brought it back. I brought it back, and I did a TV sitcoms bracket.
Yes, that was the one that I started to talk about. I think it was not in a group though, right?
No, none of that was a thing yet. So yeah. I put it on my Facebook, and I put it in the Rabbit Room, which is another group that I'm a part of.
Right.
And the Rabbit Room, I think.
Of course, yeah.
And so that's kind of where it started. And it got huge. And so I thought, for the next one, which is sort of escaping me what the next one was, I thought, well, we might as well get kooky with this thing. And I paid a buddy of mine $50 to design us a logo. And I couldn't believe it when I found out that bracketofchampions.com was available. But I was like, what the heck? Let's do this thing. And I made a little puny website that there's nothing fancy on it, but it's there, and we've got a logo. And then it took off, and all of a sudden, this thing kind of caught a little bit of steam.
Yeah.
And, people just kind of go nuts for it.
Yeah. I look at it like when you go to the bar or a coffee house, or, for guys like me, a comic book shop, and you're sitting with your friends, and you're always debating these dumb things, sort of like there was a scene in the movie Stand By Me where Teddy Duchamp and Vern are arguing about who could win in a fight, Mighty Mouse or Superman, those kind of things, and it taps into something that I think everybody sort of needed in this particular era, where we're just, there's not a lot of good news happening, regardless of what you're watching in the news. There's just not a lot of good news, and this is just kind of a fun way to escape all of that. So I really dig it.
Yeah, it's funny. I get messages all the time from people that I don't know personally, but they'll send me a Facebook message that says something like, "Hey, Bracket of Champions is the only thing keeping me on social media. Like, I look forward to the matchups every day."
Yeah, that's
like,
awesome.
Are you kidding me? This is just a dumb hobby, but it resonates.
Yeah.
And I think it has something to do with the interaction, in the Bracket of Champions group. And if you're listening to this, come join our Bracket of Champions Facebook group. It's where all the fun stuff is.
Oh yeah.
We argue over the dumbest stuff. It's always good natured. That's the other part of this is it's the rule of the group that it has to be good natured. We take it seriously, but we don't take it too seriously. So if you're going to come in and start throwing names around and being offensive, you're gone, because we're not putting up with it. That's not what it's for.
Yeah, I totally get it. And that's one of the nice aspects of it, is that I never take what people say that when they disagree with me personal, because it's just fun, silly stuff that in the end does not matter, but I think the community matters more.
Yeah, the bracket we just finished was our fast food bracket.
Yeah,
and the nonsensical arguments about condiment packets and
yes,
Twitter accounts and you name it. Like, it's so ridiculous and so much fun. And if somebody were to take it too seriously, and it has happened a couple of times, it's rare, but it has happened where maybe something comes across wrong, even if it's not intended that way. I got you'll love this. I got a Facebook message once from this sweet older lady who's in the group, and she said, and I don't know her, but she said, "John, it bothers me every time somebody says you're stupid." And I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah,
they're just kidding. It's just part of the shtick of the whole thing.
Yeah,
like you can't take it too personal.
Yeah, it feels like we're sitting. If you're a sports fan, you would know that there's around the horn, where guys sit and they just kind of yell at each other about, who's going to be who's the better power forward in the NBA, that sort of stuff. And it's never personal, which I think is the most fun part about it. You can have these arguments with your family around the dinner table just as easily, but this is just sort of opens it up to the world. So it's so much fun. It's a blast.
Yeah, and this year we did an 80s music bracket.
Yeah.
This past year.
Yeah, that segues into something I wanted to ask. How do you decide who goes in each bracket, and how do you seed them?
Yeah, so great question. And it depends a little bit. So our basic MO is we like to alternate between what we call big brackets, which are the 64 seed brackets. They're the big dogs.
Yeah, those are
alternate the big ones, and like the 80s music bracket was a big bracket. TV sitcoms was a big bracket.
Right.
Christmas movies was a big bracket. And then we like to alternate those with smaller ones. So whether they're what we call like half brackets of 32 or mini brackets of 16, whatever, we like to intersperse those to keep it a little bit interesting. And so it just depends a little bit. We always have standards. So for instance, with can I spill the beans on what's coming?
Well, why don't we do that later? Why don't we just say we're gonna you talk about what's coming later? But yeah, how do you?
Because that's a good one.
Yeah,
it depends. So every topic has its own set of criteria. So for instance, when we did 80s comedies last year, which was a big one, we put a lot of work in that one into box office, Metacritic scores, Rotten Tomatoes scores. Things like that, so that we were able to really accurately seed things over each other. So where on something like 80s comedies, even though it didn't make much money, we put This Is Spinal Tap really high because it had really high Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah, and then something like Heathers, went in really low, even though I love that movie, because it was low in all three categories. So it made it in on cult status, but it made it in as a low seed.
Right. So did Better Off Dead, right?
So Better Off Dead, So you need to understand that there's a team of us. There's a team of four of us.
Yeah.